Hi, everyone, and welcome to our today's conversation. It's going to be an interesting topic, and my guest today is Andreea, executive and life coach. Andreea has her own company, Total Transformations, and she's a big expert in hiring people, leading them, because Andreea has over 20 years of experience in Canadian corporate world. And today we will talk about hiring new grads, hiring summer students. Welcome, Andreea. I'm so glad to see you.
Thank you so much. One of my favorite summer topics. So
yes, exactly. It's fun to discuss. It's also a tough one because we do go through COVID situation, a lot of uncertainty, and students and recent grads are definitely desperately looking for opportunities, and I know that there are companies that will benefit from hiring them. So I want to ask you today, Andreea, about your experience. I know you work in supply chain for global corporations, and you mentioned recently that you hired new grads, summer students. What was your experience, and first of all, what was your expectation as a hiring manager at that time?
well, here's where I'm going to go into my view and in general also what's happening out there in the industry. So it's amazing when you're bringing on new graduates. First of all, you have to have an open mind as a manager, because you have to understand that you're not bringing in somebody who is basically made up of all of the components that a senior person would be, bring to the table. So for example, to be versed in corporate policy, to be versed in just understanding interactions in the office etiquette. Just in general, when you're bringing in a graduate, you have to have the mindset that this person has maybe never worked in an office environment, and you have to have an open mind to be able to interview the person from that perspective. So when you're asking questions, you can't really ask questions that pertain to office experience. So as a manager, when you're hiring a new graduate, you have to keep that in mind. So it's from the perspective of, tell me about a time when you had a conflict with a friend, a family member. Or for example, tell me about a time when you had to resolve a problem during one of your labs, and how did you come to that conclusion? So you're always turning it back to put it in context with the person. That way, you kind of extract what you really need as a manager, which is basically to make sure that the person is adaptable, they're coachable, they can respond to ambiguity, and they can have critical thinking skills. So this is what you should be focusing on when you're hiring somebody that's a new graduate. It's not about, tell me about the technicalities of professionalism within a corporation. You can't. That person doesn't have that experience. So we have to frame it from the perspective of the new grad, and how I, as a manager, would be able to set them up for success. So that interaction is a little bit different than somebody who is more senior, more savvy, who already has the office experience, for example. My questions would be targeted towards that experience. So for a new grad, you have to keep it in mind. You're going to have, especially if you're going to be this person's first manager, you're going to have the most impact on this person's life for the rest of their lives. And what you need to think is, how am I going to build up this person so that they can have an amazing career throughout their lifetime, and they will keep me in mind as a mentor, because at the end of the day, it's about passing on the torch. We've already gone through it with experience, but how do we set up other people for success? So when it comes to grads, that's something I've always focused on. And all the grads that I've hired over the years, it always had to do with, do I see the potential in this person? Is the person willing to take on a project and just have the honesty, integrity, the dedication to work through the project? That's the way I look at it. It's not about, what have you learned during your MBA? What projects, all of those things, it's up to the manager to onboard and to actually develop the grad. So that's something that I'm speaking to the managers and also to the grads as well. It's extremely important to equip yourself with, think of every story of everything you've gone through in your experience in terms of interaction with people, projects, and so on. And yes, sorry. So
no, that's perfectly fine. And it leads me to the next question, Andrea. When the hiring team, human resources, supply chain managers sit down and decide that they do need to hire a student or they do need to hire a recent grad, what do they usually anticipate? What differentiates a student or a recent grad from the rest of the applicants? What are their advantages, so-called competitive advantages? Because recent grads and students, they're so concerned about not having enough experience that they almost forget that they do have advantages. So what?
Absolutely. So the greatest advantage from my standpoint as a hiring manager is always the fact that somebody's coming in with fresh ideas, innovation. They're very, very open to innovating. Often when you have more senior people working on a team, it's very easy to sink into the mundane. You basically have a schedule, you maintain that schedule, and there's no excitement behind, you know, improving, innovation, process improvements. So
energy, ideas, passion, gratitude maybe for being offered an opportunity.
Absolutely. And that itself, that new energy that comes in, can actually boost the morale of the team. It's bringing in something fresh. It's actually creating a better atmosphere. I've had new grads come in and all of a sudden the senior people who are twice their age are more interested in different things, and they're bringing in technology knowledge as well, which is amazing. This
experience.
Yes, absolutely. So there are a lot of different things, and what also managers need to realize is that, again, I'm going to go back to passing on the torch. It often I find that managers are apprehensive about sharing knowledge, sharing information. We need to have the courage to empower people, to actually set them up for success. So to take a chance on people. So when you're bringing in a new grad, honestly, to have an open mind. So it's a two-way street. It's also up to the manager to realize the potential, how it's going to change the environment, how it's going to change the innovation, because fresh eyes always bring innovation. Whether it can be put through or not, at least it's a suggestion, and from that it's a stepping stone. Something else may occur from it. So bringing in a new grad is always a great thing to the team, because that new grad is also willing to take on tasks that are boring to the senior people. So it's alleviating the team of the tasks that the senior people do not wish to take on. They don't prefer to take it on. A new grad is willing to learn. So we advance together as a team. You basically provide them with those projects that perhaps the senior people don't have the time or the enthusiasm. A new grad is going to take it on enthusiastically and innovate. Yeah. So we need to think that from that perspective as well. And I've had a lot of success with new grads. So
yes, and also when the team or the organization is running day-to-day operations, they always have certain projects in mind that they keep postponing because they don't have enough resources. And that's the perfect opportunity to give these students or recent grads, I don't know, sets of data that nobody touched, or maybe in sales orders. I know that you manage the customer service team. So Andrea, when someone new is added to the team, how long usually does the training take, and what sort of training? If you can tell me from a customer service perspective, supply chain planning perspective.
Absolutely. So it's approximately 3 weeks for full onboarding. It does take up to 3 weeks. There has to be a historical cycle that the person goes through as well. So first of all, the first week is just basically wrapping your head around, you know, the actual schedule, the processes, everything that's happening, and it's extremely ambiguous. Then to basically sit with the subject matter experts in each department to be able to understand how everything is correlated, how everything interacts, how everything works together. So that takes time to understand as well. So then the second week, it's about getting to actually get into shadow someone from the team. And it's always about, so to step back a little bit, it's up to the manager to create a really comprehensive onboarding package for the new grad. So let's start from the beginning. So once this comprehensive onboarding package is created, it's really up to the manager as well to dedicate at least a half an hour at the end of the day with the student to ensure that they know it's an open door policy. They can come in and ask questions. And I always used to do this. And of course, a half an hour used to turn into an hour because they would have the courage to actually say, you know, I really don't understand that process. Could you run it by again? So you need to have that as a manager. You need to have that backup and the openness to be able to allow the grad to honestly come into your office as well and verbalize that, you know, I'm not feeling comfortable. Would you be able to give me a little bit more assistance? You have to create that environment. Okay, so to step back. So week one, you're going around, you're basically getting to know everybody in the office, the interactions, collaborations. And from there, the second week, it's usually being immersed in understanding processes, policies. It's extremely important for the grad to learn the policies. Every company has their own policies and procedures. The code of conduct is extremely important because when it comes to understanding the interactions in the office, professionalism with customers, inner interactions with internal customers, all of that has to be understood before you jump into actually working through what your dedicated job is. So it's extremely important to understand how everything is correlated, code of conduct, policies within the department, and then to actually shadow, and after the shadowing part, to start to do hands-on work. At that point, then you can gradually learn the processes and do the job that you're mandated to do. But it's prior to that, there's a lot that goes into it. So by the third week, that's when the candidate becomes a little bit more familiar and does start doing practice. And that's when still they're shadowing more senior people. But depending on the complexity of the department, because whether you're working in pharmaceutical, the pharma industry, CPG, whatever it may be, logistics, it's the level of complexity is related to that industry, also the internal processes. So that's something that the grad needs to understand, that you can't just jump in and do your job. You need to have the tools and the resources to be able to do your job. Human resources usually does a good onboarding program, but the actual support system comes from the manager. The team lead is also there to support. So grads need to understand that there's a level of complexity, and it's important to reach out and to always ask questions, because if you don't ask questions, you're self-sabotaging yourself. So your growth is always about being open, having the courage to ask questions, to also reach out to additional people. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, something from experience.
You're very welcome. I'm really here to talk about real experience.
So from experience, new grads often don't understand the etiquette within the office. So just the word of caution, when you're actually working within an office environment, it's also important that if you have any process improvement suggestions, always go through the manager. And the reason being is because there's always diplomacy that has to be employed. I've had grads who didn't really understand from the beginning that there's a certain method of communicating with other departments. And they don't have the clearance necessarily of a full-time employee. So this is where if they're brought on full-time as a grad, that's great, but also go through your team lead, go through your manager, because there's a lot of things that you can avoid because other departments are often not aware of what work you're doing. So to be able to actually set yourself up for success, it's important to address certain things with your manager. So I'm just giving a heads up because this has happened.
I had a personal example. I joined Colgate back in Russia when I was recent grad, and I communicated something to the sales department without checking with my direct manager. And you know, when sales team receives certain insights from the supply chain, they tend to take it as you know, information that they can use, and that was my biggest faux pas mistake. So I can totally relate to that. It was quite painful at the time, but I never repeated anything like that.
So I was with Colgate too for 13 years. It was my the greatest growth and development experience of my career. Awesome experience. So that's good. So you work with Colgate too.
Oh,
so
it was very, I guess, joining such organizations that a lot of tools that you use for the rest of your career, either it's in supply chain or somewhere else. My next question, Andreea, would be probably more interesting to the new grads and students, since this experience is relatively new to them. Interviewing and being interviewed is so new that most of them don't even know how to behave and what soft skills the manager is screening them for. Can you tell me certain things that they should not be doing, or maybe what's the best way to present, to showcase their personality in a way that it's suitable to this organization? And
Yes, absolutely. And this is across the board. And I can speak to all the organizations that I work with and hired for, especially when it comes to grads. It's extremely important to be friendly. So to have a friendly demeanor, be open and be honest, and just be prepared with, basically when you're being asked questions, they're mostly emotional intelligence questions. But if the manager is savvy enough, they will know that they can't really, again, I touched on this, they can't really ask you about office experience, but they can ask you about interactions with your family. They can ask you about, tell me about a project, tell me about this and this. So what we're looking for, again, is adaptability. And when you're showcasing that, you have to basically be enthusiastic about the fact that, and honest. Mm-hmm. Honesty is extremely important. You know, when you're being asked a question, you could say, you know, unfortunately, I don't have that experience, but if you give me the opportunity, I will happily, you know, create a project around that, and it'll give me a fantastic growth experience, and I look forward to doing that. So have that enthusiasm, have the friendliness, have the cooperative attitude. Don't have an attitude where you think that from the beginning you're going to land a mid-level position. Be humble. Be humble, and basically your discussion, have some humility, because a lot of people, they're looking for a fit. As a new grad, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the hiring manager. So think of it this way. The hiring manager already has a group of 10 people, small group. Okay, let's say I had up to 30 at one point. But basically the way that works is there's already a team dynamic. So for them, it's a very hard job for the manager to bring in an additional person. It's going to either improve the dynamic or wreck the dynamic. So when you're being interviewed, listen to what the manager is asking. if the manager keeps repeating questions about conflict, it's because there's certain things within that department that are challenging. So it's up to you as a new grad to prove that you have an open mind, you're cooperative, you're looking forward to joining a dynamic team. It's going to be exciting to learn from people who are more senior. I'll be able to learn by example. I'm joining a great organization, and I'm really looking forward to assisting. And whatever project you give me, I will happily take on. So to have that enthusiasm, the openness, the cooperation, the actual will to help. So when you're actually presenting yourself, it's always about, I'm so excited how I can contribute. I'm excited to help. Even though I don't have this experience, I'm sure I'll be able to actually ask you, and you'll be able to provide me with that additional support. So to already create a bond between you and that manager, it's not just, think of it this way: you're a human being, you're speaking to a human being.
Yes.
Don't make it robotic. Don't make it robotic, because I think a lot of grads think that if they memorize those 30 questions, IQ questions, interview questions, and then they forget about EQ altogether, they're going to come in, look like a sharpshooter, and all of a sudden, I am the top candidate, I'm going to be hired. Unfortunately, it's not about that. It's also about the emotional part. How are you going to present yourself? Because think of it this way: when you're starting out as a new grad, you're starting out at the bottom. So we've all started out at the bottom. We all had to start somewhere, but we work through the ladder, but it was a painful growth experience at every point. So those people that you're joining, you have to understand they've already gone through all of the different steps to arrive where they're at. So have a humble attitude, learn from them, be willing to learn, and then you will be better accepted. And then your ideas of innovation will be better received. So it's a balance.
Yes, and Andreea, also ask interesting questions. And
yes,
if you are going for an interview with an organization and you're so passionate about their product, you've done your homework, you know everything about this organization, you understand the nature of their business, that passion will come through. I mean,
absolutely, yes.
If you are passionate about organization, everybody appreciates that, especially if you've done extensive homework, your research. It's absolutely important. Being ready for an interview, knowing every single aspect about this organization is going to put you in a much better position. And
it's
never a waste of time. You will learn more things, and your discussion will be in a way that you understand your value, and you'll be comfortable presenting yourself because you know what this company may be interested in. It will
right. Absolutely. It's a balance between the two. So that's what needs to be brought out during these interviews. For example, when I was interviewing, definitely, if somebody knew something about the company, it was great. But I would also bring back the issues I was having with my existing teams to make sure that this person would fit in properly.
Absolutely.
In terms of so definitely everything. But if you know something about the company, it's so value added. It's a very important point to make. You're absolutely right.
Thank you. And of course, every time we think about students, we think about someone who is friendly, easygoing, approachable. So be yourself, be true to yourself. Don't try to pretend someone you're not. And it's definitely, as you mentioned, being honest and being genuine and being willing to help. Because being a new grad or joining an organization at the very entry level means that you will work on projects that may not be in your job descriptions. You will be offered work that may be someone else's work. So
Yes,
Remove that attitude that the company owns you or something. You are there to bring value. You are there to
exactly.
help them exceed their KPIs. And hard work always pays off. And Andrew, I know you
Of
mentioned
course.
to me recently that there were a few cases where someone who joined company on a temporary basis became a full-time employee. Can you tell
Yes.
me what characteristics, what attitude made them full-time employees? Why did you end up hiring them for the full-time?
Absolutely. So basically, these people, from the beginning, they hit the ground running. Basically, no matter what project they were given, they had that enthusiasm and attitude. They went off on their own. They took initiative, and it's about taking initiative. It's about actually being friendly. It's about uplifting the team. So it was a combination of a lot of things. But these particular individuals, you could tell that regardless that they were lacking in office experience,
Mhm.
they had the will. They were fast tracking everything. They were interested. They were actually very passionate about what they were doing. So that comes through. And when you're really passionate and you're actually taking an additional interest, for example, to learn more things and to have the bigger scope of how the company is running and how all of the puzzle pieces fit in together. The person is taking an interest in actually growing as an individual, and that shows right away. Because it's actually pulling up the rest of the team. So it's actually working together.
You don't
And
want to, you don't want to lose this employee.
no, absolutely. Absolutely, because that passion and enthusiasm actually raises the morale of the team,
Mhm.
and everything, all the projects would get done faster. They would basically take on anything that was ambiguous to others, and they would do the research. They would passionately look into it, and they would offer solutions. So I really did not want to let go of these individuals because they really, really brought so much to the team. And I fought very hard to actually change the position from temporary to full-time, and never regretted it. I have fought very hard for a lot of people throughout my career, but wherever I
So
would see
glad.
somebody enthusiastic, it's like, I don't care. Let's find the budget. We need to do it because our customers are benefiting at the end of the day. Our internal customers are benefiting. Look how further we're moving in terms of the company, in terms of meeting our objectives, because these people are enthusiastic. So, and they were new grads, right? So it is possible, but it's a relationship where the manager has to also be invested in the future of these grads. And I highly, highly recommend that all managers take a great interest in you grads, because these are the people that you can coach and mold into these superstars that are going to lead the company up to the next level. So
Exactly.
this is
I'm so glad
right.
you're mentioning that because these days during COVID, a lot of organizations can't afford training sessions, onboarding
Mm-hmm.
sessions. So they really need people to hit the ground running. And I'm glad that we are talking about this subject. You invest some time, you train people, but you
Yes.
get more, you get attitude, you get energy, you get passion. And these parameters are way harder to find than the technical skill set.
Yes. Yes.
I'm really glad. And of course, we all have to learn from young professionals. We all have to keep our passion
Absolutely.
and our energy up, stay motivated, find those challenges all the time, come up with solutions and initiatives. It's a great boost
It is.
to the culture, to the team dynamics. So
That's right. Exactly.
I'm so glad. Andrea, thank you so much for your time. We
You're
can probably
welcome.
get together again. I'm sure we'll have a lot
Yes.
of questions, and I wish each and every one success. I hope that at some point you will find that perfect employer, that perfect team where you will be recognized, appreciated, and where your career will skyrocket. So good luck. Don't give up. We spoke about resilience recently, how to stay mentally fit. So you're very welcome to check my previous videos with Andrea. Those were full of insights, and certainly we will get together once again and discuss something that may be interesting for our audience. Andrea, thank you so much for your time. It was a great pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, and good luck to everyone. And be the change you want to see in the world. You're the ones that are going to lead the future. So good luck, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.